I'm going to pretend that I have no skill, no idea what to do when it comes to game development. But I want to make a game, so I'll do so purely through vibe coding. To make things more interesting, I won't be allowed to leave the Unity editor. Meaning no ChatGPT, no external image generators, not even things like Photoshop or any search engine. Everything will be done inside the Unity editor. Is this even possible? Well, Unity 6.2 was recently released, and it has its own AI tools that you can access from within Unity. It can assist you in the editor, generate code, images, and even sounds. It can't generate 3D models yet, which is why I'm going to be creating a 2D game. To be more specific, I'm going to be creating a 2D space shooter. I'll keep it pretty simple: one enemy mob, one attack, and one map. I hope you can learn something out of this. I know I did, as this was my first time using this feature. So now let's roll the intro. My name is Esper, I work as a freelance game developer, and I'm also a Unity asset publisher. My goal is to create assets that empower passionate indie game developers to help bring their dream games to life. All of my assets are available in the Unity Asset Store, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. Some of my assets are even free, so even if you prefer to not pay anything, it's worth it to check them out. However, I'd highly recommend checking out my paid assets, as they are either much easier to use, packed with more features, or both. By the way, I recently decided to try out content creation, so I'd appreciate any feedback, positive or negative. Now let's get on with the video. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is set up my project so that it can use Unity's AI services. So I'm simply going to click on this AI button and install Unity AI. I also need to set up my camera so that it works as intended for a 2D game. I'm just going to remove this 3D light, set the background to black, move my camera to the center, and set the projection to orthographic. Now we can start generating sprites. So I'm going to click on the AI dropdown, select generate new, and then select sprite. The first sprite is going to be for the player, so I'll just rename it to that. After renaming, the sprite generator pops up. There are a bunch of models to choose from. I'm going to select this one because it can generate 2D spaceships, which is exactly what I need. I'm not sure exactly what I want, but I do know I want a detailed spaceship, so that's what I'm going to write as the prompt. I'll set the number of sprites generated to 9 so that I have a wide range to choose from. I don't need to change the dimensions, so I'll just generate. This process can take a while, so let's skip it. So this is what we ended up with. There are a lot of designs here, but only a few that have potential to work. I think the first one is good for the player, so I'm going to select that. I want to remove the background, so I'll head over to the Remove BG tab here and just start the process. This is the end result. I think it looks pretty good, but now I'm going to need an enemy design as well, so I'll just pick from one of these. I think this one is good, so I'm just going to right click it and then select Promote to New Asset. And now I'm going to remove the background once again. Here's the result. It's asking me if I want to confirm the replacement. I do, so I'll select yes. At this point, I'm done with sprite generation, so I'll just close the windows. Before I move on, I should probably change the name of the sprite to enemy. So I'm actually just going to start creating a particle system that will make it seem like the player is traveling through space. I'm just going to time-lapse this part while explaining what the particle system does. It simply spawns many particles randomly inside a rectangle while repeatedly adjusting their size to make it seem like they're flickering. The particles are moving downwards constantly, which will make it seem like the player is traveling upwards. That's about it, and this is the end result. So now I'm going to start setting up the game components. Starting with the player, I'll just resize it and place it where I want it to start off. I also need to give it a collider that matches its model. I'll add a capsule collider for its base and make sure the size is correct. And now I'll add a box collider for its wings. I have to do the exact same thing for the enemy, so I'll just time-lapse this part. Unlike the player, the enemies will be spawned at runtime, so it doesn't actually need to be in the scene. I'll make it a prefab and remove it. Now I just need to add a text object that will serve as the score counter. It's literally just one anchor text object, nothing crazy. I'll make sure it's on the right hand side and that it can properly display a large score. Okay, let's test it. Yep, looks good. Alright, so now I can get back into Unity AI. I'm going to start generating scripts. So I'm going to click the AI dropdown and select Open Assistant. This is essentially Unity's ChatGPT. If I type / here, some options pop up. I'm going to use the code option since I want it to generate code. Okay, so I'm just going to start off with the score counter. Create a component called Score Manager, which will keep track of the player's score. 1 point should be added per second. It should accept a Text Mesh Pro UGUI component and update the text in this format, score n, where n is the current score. Also, it should allow other scripts to add a specific amount of points. Now I'll just run it and it should create the script for me. Here it is. If I'm someone that doesn't know how to code, I don't really need to take a look at it. I'll just save it to my scripts folder. Now I just need to add the script to the scene and set the text component through the inspector. Now let's enter play mode to test it. So the score is increasing by 1 per second, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. Now we need to ensure that the player can move around. I'm just going to have left and right movement. So create a component that allows the player to move left and right with the A and D keys. I'll save this to my scripts folder. And now I just need to give the player object to this script. Finally, I can enter play mode and test it. It works. It does feel a little slow though, which is fine because I can adjust the speed through the component. The spaceships should be constantly shooting out bullets. So I need to create a bullet prefab that will be spawned. I'll just create a simple 2D capsule that will be used as the bullet. It needs a capsule collider to detect collisions. It also needs a rigid body 2D with collision detection set to continuous and gravity scale set to 0. Before I move on to generating the bullet script, I'll just make the bullet a prefab. Now I can generate the script. Create a bullet component that simply destroys the object it collided with and itself. Use 2D collision. Now I can save this. And now I can give the bullet component to the bullet prefab. So I actually forgot to mention that the bullet should not be able to destroy the user. I'm just going to make the AI update the script. I can do that by simply telling it what to change and then replacing the previous bullet script with a new one. The AI decided to detect the user with a tag, which works pretty well since enemies shouldn't be able to attack other enemies. But now I actually need to create 2 bullet prefabs, one for the player and one for the enemies. The player bullet will reference the player tag, while the enemy bullet will reference the enemy tag. This means I need to set the enemy prefab to the enemy tag and the player prefab to the player tag. I don't have an enemy tag, so I'll create one. And then I'll set the player to the player tag. Now I'm going to need a gun script. But before I generate that, I'll create an empty object that will represent the position of the gun. I'll move it around to ensure it's in the right position. That should be good. Okay, so create a gun component that spawns a bullet prefab automatically and continuously, spawn speed controlled with a float value. It should make each spawned bullet travel in a specific direction set from the inspector. I'm just gonna save it to my scripts folder. And now I can give the gun component to the empty gun object. I need it to reference the player's bullet prefab. The spawn point should be its own transform. It actually shows where the bullet will travel, so I'll just adjust it to point upwards. When I generated the bullet component, I forgot to mention that the bullet should not destroy itself when colliding with the user, so I'll make the AI fix that. Now I can test it. So there are two clear issues. The bullets shouldn't be rotating and they should be removing themselves after going off screen. I can fix the rotation issue by simply freezing rotation on the rigid body. And then I can make the AI add a 5-second lifespan to all bullets. Alright, let's test it now. Looks good. If I play around with the gun component, I can actually adjust the fire rate. I just noticed that bullets can destroy other bullets, which is an interesting mechanic. I think I'll keep it there. Okay, so I still need to make the enemies move. I'll generate a script that initially makes the enemies travel downwards, since they will be spawned off screen from the top and then they will travel left and right, which will be looped. I'll just give this script to the enemy prefab and then increase their speed. That was just the enemy movement script. I still need a spawner that infinitely spawns enemies after a delay. It should accept a game object prefab, which it will spawn. So I'll just generate one here. Now I can add this component to the scene and reference the enemy prefab. I also needed to adjust the position of the enemy spawner object so that it spawns enemies off screen at the top. Now let's test this. There we go, they do get spawned. Enemies should also be shooting bullets, so let's give them a gun as well. I'll also change the color of the enemy's bullets so that it's more obvious that it needs to be dodged. But before I forget, I need to fix the direction that the bullets are fired. They need to be fired downwards. Now I can enter play mode and test it. Well, clearly it works. So I want to add 100 points every time the player destroys an enemy. So I'll just tell the AI, add 100 points when an enemy is destroyed. So it created a script called enemy. Alright, I'll just save it. And then I'll add the script to the enemy prefab. Now I can just test the changes. And it works. We can see 100 points added whenever an enemy is destroyed. So I also want the game to restart when the player is destroyed. I'll just ask the AI to create a player script that will reload the current scene when the game object is destroyed. For this to work, I will need to add the scene to the scene list. And now I'll just save the script and add it to the player prefab. So now let's test this. I'll just play around and try to survive. And the game resets after I get hit. Great, so far it's working as intended. So I have to move on to sound soon. I need the bullet, player, and enemy scripts to be able to play a sound at the right time. First, I'll make the AI update the bullet script so that it plays a sound when the bullet is spawned. So I noticed that it's trying to use an audio source component. I'd rather not set up an audio source, so I'll tell it to change that. Okay, this is probably fine, so I'll just save that and move on. Here I'm just making the AI update the player and enemy scripts so that it plays a sound when they are destroyed. It's pretty repetitive, so I'm just going to speed it up. With the sound generation AI, I'm going to create two sounds. One for the bullet and one for the spaceship being destroyed. I'll create the first one for the bullet. I'll just write keywords that represent how I want it to sound. I want the sound to be short, so I'll set the duration to 1. I'll make it generate the max amount so that I have a wide range to choose from. Now I'll start the generation. This takes a while, so we can skip it. So this is the end result. I'm just checking to see if I like any of them. So I kind of don't like any of these. I'll try to change the prompt and regenerate. Okay, so I generated some more here. I think this one works the best, so I'm going to select it. Now I can move on to the destroyed sound. So I'm going to create another sound, call it explode. And basically do the same thing with a different prompt. So here are the options. I like the last one the most, so that's what I'm going to select. Now that I've created the sounds, I need to set them on each prefab, which I'm doing here. Now let's test to see if the sounds will play. Alright, it works. However, there are some issues related to when sounds are played and when the scene reloads. So I'll have the AI fix these. I think having the scene reload logic on the player script was a bad idea, so I'll try to get it to be separated. I'll just ask the AI to remove the scene reload logic from the player script and to create a new script that will reload the scene after a delay instead. So it updated the player script and created a new script called scene reloader, which will handle scene reloading. This new script needs to be present in the scene, so I've created a new object for it. Now let's test it. So there are still some issues. These errors showed up when the scene reloaded. I think it's because scene reloads call on destroy, which will make each ship play their destroy sound while the scene is being loaded, which is resulting in the error. I think I can fix this by asking the AI to only allow the destroy sound to play on enemies if the player has not been destroyed yet, meaning sounds will only play when the scene reloading process has not begun. Okay, there's that. Now let's enter play mode to test. Alright, there are no more errors. And that's all. I created a game without making my own sprites, without writing any code, without knowing anything about sound design, and without even leaving the Unity editor. Of course, there are many more things I could do to improve the game, like making enemy ships invincible while they're traveling down, but I think this video has been long enough. I just wanted to try out Unity's new AI feature. Personally, I think this feature deserves way more improvements, which it will definitely be getting in the future. For now, I would still recommend using external tools, especially for sprites. The AI is not good at generating sprite sheets at the time, and having animated sprites is much better than a static image. Anyway, give this video a like if you learned something, subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and if you'd like to see me cover a specific topic in a future video, let me know in the comments down below. That's all from me for now.